Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of This Week in Irish History. I'm Dan Murphy. With me as always, senior editor Lou Somogyi. This week we're going to take you back just 20 years in history to one of the more memorable recent games in Notre Dame history. We've got Notre Dame, Florida State, number 1 versus number 2, November 13th, 1993. Both teams came in undefeated. It was one of those game of the centuries. Notre Dame has been a part of quite a few of those in the past century, but Notre Dame 31-24 win. Lou, what are your kind of biggest memories about that game?
Well, I remember by Thursday, the place was just hopping. All the vans and everything were already in the parking lot. Also, ESPN was on the show. That's how game day originated. They decided, hey, you know what, this is so big, so epic, that let's just go ahead and set up shop there. And they set it up in the concourse at the Joyce Center. And after that, they said, hey, you know what, we can make this a show every week here. So a lot of things emanated from that game. Number 1 versus number 2. Florida State came in as the 7-point favorite. It was publicized as maybe the best team of all time at that time too, with Charlie Ward, who would win the Heisman Trophy at quarterback. And I always remember the late Beano Cook though saying November 13th, it's like Notre Dame is like Russia in the winter. But actually it turned out to be really a pretty nice balmy day, about 55 degrees, no major fact, and Notre Dame pretty much just took it to them. It was considered speed versus power, Florida State speed versus Notre Dame's power, and the power won out.
And Notre Dame, from what I understand, it was Notre Dame kind of controlled most of the game, and Florida State made sort of a late rush to make it a little more interesting than it might have actually looked.
You know what was funny? Lou Holtz is just a master at this type of thing. He always had a Friday night visual session with his team. And one of the things he said to the team while they were visualizing the game was, Florida State's going to get the opening series, they're going to go right down the field and score, we're going to be behind 7-0. And it's like everyone like, what? This is supposed to be a positive thing? Guess what happened the next day? First possession, 89 yards, touchdown, right. Florida State's up. Notre Dame then scored the next 24 points and really had the game pretty much in control. Even it's 31-17 with 2 minutes left, 2:36 or something like that, and it's a fourth and goal from the 20 for Florida State. Charlie throws it into the end zone. Brian McGee kind of has it. It falls out of his hands, tipped. They catch a touchdown. And I've always thought, if the game had ended 31-17 instead of 31-24, Notre Dame would have at least received a split of the national title that year with Florida State. Right. I think they just thought, they had the perception that it's 31-24, the final score, and it was only one score. They got maybe fortunate. And I've always thought, if it could have been 31-17 instead without that tip, Notre Dame would have gotten a share.
Of course, the epilogue to that game after Notre Dame wins is they lose the following week of a missed field goal at Boston College right at the end of the game. The BC hits that field goal, and they go to the Cotton Bowl instead of the Orange Bowl to face Nebraska. And I know that was a big controversy. I mean, how big of a deal is that? As far as the national championship game, things that went wrong?
It was a tremendous deal because just 4 years earlier in 1989, what happened was that Notre Dame finished 12-1, but it lost to Miami in the finale. So that was a head-to-head, and the justification, even though Notre Dame had the stronger overall schedule, beat 8 or 7 teams that finished in the top 18, the justification was that, hey, Miami won head-to-head. That's all you need to know. Now here it is 4 years later, another November game late. Notre Dame wins the head-to-head, but then Florida State is awarded the national title. So Lou Holtz was beside himself, as were many of us there, because it just seemed to have that double standard.
And nowadays Notre Dame seems to get the reputation that they're kind of gifted all these BCS appearances and things they might not deserve. Back then it wasn't quite the same case.
No. That was that was what I kind of referred to until last year, the last hurrah at Notre Dame, that last moment. And then you did have it last November when Notre Dame reached number 1 again, and that was the first time since '93 there. But that was that last immense victory, that one that is one for the ages, that people put into the record books.
Running back Lee Becton went for 100 yards in that game and played a big role in that power role you were talking about. Are there any other individual performances that stand out to you from the Florida State game?
Yeah, Jeff Burris had a heck of a game. He was playing in the defensive backfield, but he was always brought in for short yardage situations, goal line situations, and he scored on 6 and 11-yard runs. And I always remember the comment from Aaron Taylor, the Lombardi Award winner that year. He said, everyone looked at this as speed versus power, and let me tell you, Florida State is very fast, very, very fast. But when you keep getting hit in the mouth all the time, it gets at you after a while. And I think he said that he thought they were able to break their will.
Well, Florida State Notre Dame rematch isn't totally out of the question yet for this year. Possibility in the BCS Bowl. Definitely next year in Tallahassee. Might not be the same result if they run into Jameis Winston again this year, but Notre Dame will definitely be down there in Tallahassee next season for an interesting ACC tie-in matchup there. But that's going to do it for us this week on This Week in Irish History. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next week.